Today we look at volcanoes, their existence just like the theory of outbreaks, although there are official explanations. But let's see if there are still parallels to it. From an official point of view, a volcano is located in an earthly geological formation that has a hole and crater. Such holes can also be ordinary cracks from which a hot lava and volcanic gases come to the surface, that appeared from Earth's intestines or previously on the Earth's crust and other planets. Various products of volcanism emit that form mountains and hills. Many questions arise with these statements, the first of which is that if there is a substance like magma in the intestine of our planet, why can't I still find it in other examples, such as the depth of the fountain that operates 12,262 kilometers, and no trace of magma? As our researchers have decided, the magma only occurs sometimes, which corresponds to a molten mass on a solid Earth's crust, more natural and purer of all hot silicate that arises in the Earth's crust or in the upper mantle at great depths. Excess magmate stones that arise at great depths in the Earth's crust or upper mantle, which have lost other components, are called lava. But there is no evidence of this, only assumptions. Then why don't we assume that it doesn't arise deep underground but directly in the mountain? If scientists even supposedly have diagrams of these volcanoes inside, why don't they check this information and start any devices in the form of small drones there? Why has everything been clear to them for a long time? Because in fact at least a bit of thinking people also follows from the generally accepted versions of the formation of volcanoes, that they are mainly formed in places where one tectonic plate sank under another. Full stop. The Yellowstone volcano and its location to the limits of tectonic plates is 1,120 kilometers, which would be a bit far considering that the theory is different. Let's see where we stand on the maps of the lithospheric plates. There is another famous volcano, Mount Etna. It is located on the Italian island of Sicily. There is certainly a distance to borders. These are much shorter and only 259 kilometers, but still really not close. How can I explain why many volcanoes are so far from the border, which are also controversial, by the way? But scientists can't look at the completely different theory in any way. Well, let's take a close look at the composition of the magma. Let's assume that in fact, the volcano is being created. I remember that the magma becomes lava after cooling. Many of their elements are lost in the process during cooling, and becomes lava when solidified. Most often there are 4 types of belonging, which are determined by the content of silicon dioxide in the rock basalt of 48 to 53%, andesite from 54 to 62%, from 63 to 70%, rhyolites of 70 to 76%, rocks in which the amount of silicon dioxide is less than a large proportion of magnesium and iron. When the lava cools down, a significant part of the melt forms volcanic glass, from which individual microscopic crystals are found. The exception of finished crystals, crystals that, according to scientists, could have been formed in the Earth's intestine and brought to the surface by a stream of living heads, usually referred to as a fit. The color of volcanic glass depends on the amount of iron contained therein. The more iron, the darker the chemical composition of volcanic gases. The next water vapor, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, nitrogen and sulfur oxide. Sulfur oxide, gaseous sulfur, hydrogen, ammonia, hydrogen chloride, hydrogen sulfide, hydrogen sulfide. The temperature inside the volcano sometimes reaches above 1000 degrees Celsius. Thinks of volcanoes. Of course, we haven't learned so much, but enough to compare them with a non-hazardous phenomenon other than waste piles. It is completely the product of human activity. That is, it is completely artificial or iconic. It is a garbage dump or an artificial fossil. Sometimes it happens that it simply explodes and the temperature in it reaches 1000 to 1500 degrees. They also emit toxic gases and ashes, which are officially written like this. That a volcanically high concentration of carbon monoxide, hydrocarbon and other toxic substances is present when artificial coal is burned. It was necessary to replace the phrase, which resembles volcanic with identical composition, with volcanic ones. The composition of the same waste also sometimes breaks in the 20th century. Similar stories often happened and some ended in major disasters. For example, a tragic incident occurred in 1966 in Great Britain in the area of Wales near the small village of Albertson. More than 50 years ago, there was in the early morning of the 21st of October a high garbage dump. A chemical reaction occurred in it, or more simply, an eruption that triggered an ordinary rain. A glowing rock mass covered 20 residential buildings and sadly a primary school in the UK. 144 people died that day, including 116 orphans, children aged 7 to 10 years. An incident of this magnitude was banned as the occasion for legislative initiatives of a mining company around the world to deposit industrial waste near settlements. The CIS countries have already passed the law in the 21st century. Century quoted, "The explosion among her was as strong as a resident describes it. It was almost dark. I went home, so I saw something suddenly flashing. It became very bright on the garbage dump. I was dazzled by a flash and a very strong explosion was heard, which I felt with all my body and trembled the earth under my feet. I don't remember panicking or hitting the explosion wave because I came to myself on the ground." It also happens that the formation of smoking sulfuric acid allium triggers the processes of so-called dry combustion. This substance causes flameless oxidation of the rock when this concentrate enters water. By evaporation, the release of rock and steam will certainly occur like the volcano itself. What do you think? Is it similar to the last day at Pompeii, only on a smaller scale? Or, I do not understand the chemical composition of volcanic rock and stockpile, identical gas compositions also, the same processes. Some quietly for decades, some break out several times in 10 to 20 years. No one has seen the volcano from the inside, not even tectonic plates. No one has seen you, but then forgive me, why damn, should we assume that there is melted magma somewhere deep below us? What comes to the surface due to volcanic eruptions? Volcanologists do not know that you can only guess inside the volcano itself. Why are we forced to eat drawings from an early age that are actually nothing more than just their violent fantasies? Well, for some reason, it seems to me, everything has long been researched and decided to invent a volcano that can't just get out of the ground. Because I would have to explain where huge piles of waste appeared on Earth at the time of the dinosaur and the monkey man, especially with which technologies. They needed minerals when there were developed civilizations. But what about dinosaurs and a meteorite? How about a Cro-Magnon monkey, etc.? The slightest thought to ask such questions. I think the committed know the answers. Well, we just shouldn't know that. But I have it for the time being. All my joy is with you as always.